The presidential candidate of the Labour Party, Peter Obi, flagged off their campaign in Lafayette, the state capital of Nasarawa, on the 29th of October, after pausing his campaign activities in order to visit states that were hit by latest flood disaster. However, the party is back on the road as they took their campaign to Benue State, where the party's presidential candidate, Peter Obi, assured Nigerians that he will restructure the country to bring the much-needed change if elected president. While addressing supporters at the rally, the Labour Party flag bearer says the federal government will, under its leadership, among other things, support every state, prioritize security, and improve educational sector. He also said Nigerians should hold him responsible on the campaign promises if elected to office. So joining us now to discuss the campaign activities as we head towards 2023 elections is Mr. Dele Farotimi, public affairs analyst and member of the Labour Party Presidential Council. Great to have you to the program. I mean, your presidential candidate said again yesterday, tape what I am saying, record me. You can play back as evidence. But where is his manifesto?
Well, you asked me this question before, and I remember that I did tell you at the time that it is the exclusive right of the candidate to release this document. I have seen a draft of it, and I believe it was a final draft. But I'm also aware that when you have the kind of coalition that has coalesced together to birth the platform on which Mr. Peter Obi is running, you are going to have diverse interests who would also have ideas and inputs they might want to put in the manifesto. So I'm aware that there are certain internal discussions going on that is delaying the release of the manifesto. But it is critical that we move beyond manifestos. I'm not saying that this is not an important document and shouldn't be part and parcel of the political process, because it is at a minimum a statement of exactly what it is that the candidate intends to do. But because of our recent history, where people have authored voluminous manifestos that promises pies in the skies, and I've even seen a few released in this cycle, including the ones that would ignore the eastern seaboards to be building dry docks. But I know that in due course, the manifesto will come out, but character matters. And the candidate in question is a man of integrity and character. He's in the public space and has been for a few years. And he has a history of following up his words with action. He talks and he does exactly what he says that he will do. So he has a record in the public space of matching his words with performance. So whilst I'm not suggesting that his words should be the substitute for a documented manifesto, I assure you that the manifesto is receiving very urgent attention, and in actual fact is behind schedule and should have been released a week or two back, but I'm sure that it will be coming out in the coming days. I'm sorry I keep saying this like a broken record, but I'm sure it will be resolved soon.
The Director General of the Obi-Datti Ahmed campaign organization, that's Dr. Donyo Kupe, was on television. I had a press conference at which he categorically stated that the Labour Party presidential candidate and its running mate would not attend any town hall or presidential debate where other key presidential candidates are absent. Some people say, no, that's not a good idea. That the candidates of your party, the candidate of your party, should seize every available opportunity to engage with Nigerians and sell the party's ideas instead of looking across the fence at whether the neighbor is going to be present or not.
You see, when we have an electoral process that has also incorporated debates and town hall meetings, interactions with the public, at least critical members of the public, since not every one of the 200 million Nigeria would fit into this stadium where they have these jamborees. The expectation is that the likes of you who can ask critical questions would have the opportunity to ask these questions of the presidential candidates. At least there are 4 leading candidates who are expected to subject themselves, at least submit themselves to this process. But a particular candidate in person of Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu, has been particularly evasive and dodgy about submitting himself to any sort of interrogation that is outside his control. We've even asked, we have had occasion to jokingly demand that he should come and submit himself to the Arise studio, that I'll wear his cap, the bat cap, for as long as this season lasts, if he would dare. But the gentleman has continued to evade this. And what we have discovered is that whenever His Excellency, Mr. Peter Obi, has had occasion to submit himself to these debates, there is, it's almost like, is either Shetima is coming on behalf of the APC campaign, or as we had in the last one at the Arise Town Hall meeting, you had a Governor Okowa who came around, and then you had a Dino Melaye more or less desecrating the office of the Senate, because this was a former senator, and there he was prancing up and down the place. So it wasn't exactly an atmosphere where the opportunity really exists, as we would have desired, to have a comparison made by Nigerians of exactly who and who are the persons offering themselves. So if Dr. Okupe is saying that if others do not submit themselves, that must be in response to what transpired at the last town hall meeting. That's one. Second thing is that these things are subject to review. And I am not sure it is a complete blanket decision that will say that we will not be appearing again. I just heard Don Pedro confirm that Mr. Abubakar Atiku will be available for future debates. I'm sure that if he's available, confirming his attendance, Mr. Peter Obi and others will be willing to attend, even though it's almost 100% certain that we will not see Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu submit himself to any such process. But it's a rolling decision. We'll come to that decision whenever the invitations come.
Okay. You had your campaign in Benue yesterday. You had Peter Obi was there with, members of this group, and they, espoused their ideas and talked about, things that they'll be doing for the country and all of that. But I also want to raise a big question. And I think since the last time we raised it, you said you were going to talk to his vice presidential candidates. The end sounds conundrum, where his vice presidential candidates call that debatable. Have you been able to talk to his vice presidential candidates as regards, that interview?
Fortunately or unfortunately, I have not had the pleasure of his person, but I've had the benefit of his perspective. I was speaking with somebody on the campaign who took up the issue and spoke with him. And what I was made to understand, which sounds a little reasonable to me, at least until such a time as when I'm opportune to speak with him directly. You remember that when the panel submitted his report, the Lagos state government rejected that particular finding of massacre. It was deliberately ignored and rejected. So now, if he is speaking and he doesn't have the benefit of personal experience that I had of the NSAS massacre, if I have not given him the benefit of that personal experience and knowledge that I have of what transpired, in addition to the finding of the panel itself, if all he has is the benefit of the Lagos state government position, because the official position of the Lagos state government and the Nigerian state until date, which I'm not going to be surprised by, because if they are admitting to it, then they are leaving themselves open to the International Criminal Court. But the official position in Lagos state today, in spite of the fact that the Lagos state government has paid compensation to victims, both traumatized victims, those who lost persons, Lagos state government has paid them. In order to even hide that he paid them, he paid in cash to these persons. So if you have that level of state-level subterfuge, where the state is doing everything to undermine the finding of massacre by his own panel, and it has deliberately ignored to admit that that happened, and the Nigerian state is equally saying the same, I think, as I have said before, I maintain my position that there was a massacre. I have not had the benefit of Dr. Datti's company, but The person I spoke with, who gave me his perspective, said the man says his perspective is shaped by the official report into the matter. I disagree with that official report, and my position remains the same as that found by the panel of inquiry. And Lagos State government's actions actually bears out what the panel has said.
I mean, when did Dr. Datti start taking official reports? Because he has been somebody that he has always questioned every official report. And we know how official reports are suspect in this country. Take, for instance, what happened in Borno State yesterday, the attack on the PDP. That we saw evidence, we saw video footage, but the police said it's fake news. So when did Mr. Datti all of a sudden start taking official reports so seriously, more than anything, more than, things that he could probably have researched himself?
If I could somehow get into Mr. Datti's head to answer this question you've just asked, I assure you I would. But fact is this, there is a plausible basis for his skepticism. Do I agree? No. And I am saying to you, and I'm still repeating what I had said to you in the past, I have sufficient knowledge of the massacre to affirm, and I am affirming in my person, I'm still saying it with every fiber of my being, that there was a massacre. There is more than sufficient evidence of that. But the official government position, let's question the fraudulence of our own country and we can whip up this outrage, and I'm outraged as well by denials of the massacre. But that outrage, I believe, should actually be reserved for the system that has normalized the denial of the massacre of his own citizens, quote and unquote. Dr. Datti does not have the benefit of knowing what I know. I paid hospital bills. If I leave the story, I know what I know. So nobody is going to move me, even with a gun pointed to my head, to move away from the fact that I know that there was a massacre. Dr. Datti's opinion is formed on the basis of his own official papers or whatever, but that is his opinion. This is my opinion.
Okay, let's move away from NSAS. Let's talk about political violence.
Yeah.
The Labour Party has had cause to complain about attacks on some of his supporters. In Nasarawa, for example, and also in Lagos, where two flag boys were also attacked. The PDP complained yesterday how it was attacked in Borno State, also before then in Kaduna State, and yet all these political parties, they signed the peace accord. It looks like that peace accord, nobody is taking it seriously. Do you have any anxieties or fears that political violence could get worse as you move towards the 2023 general elections?
The more desperate the political actors become, the more violent they are bound to be. I live in Lagos State, so I can speak with specificity to the layers of violence that exist within Lagos State. At a subliminal level, when you're driving around the city, you'll find that almost all the commercial buses or what have you have the Shetima, Tinubu stickers and everything. And then you hear from the drivers stories of the extortion that led to those things getting onto their contraptions. You go and you see a lot of people shut down their markets and come onto the street, and they tell you, oh, we had to attend these rallies or our stalls will be taken back from us. You see different layers where people paste their posters or attempt to gain billboard space, and you hear the proprietors of the billboard saying, no, we can't give it to you because we will lose our advertising license. So you find multiple layers of pressure of one sort or the other being exerted on persons or on groups. And then you find outright intimidation, sometimes by even security agents. The flag boys were primarily stopped inside Lekki by policemen, not just thugs. So you have a confluence between the Agberos in Lagos, the police in Lagos, all seeking to assert the powers of the hegemony that rules in Lagos. And that's it right there, open daylight, happening every day. Now you go to a place like Nasarawa, where we had our first rally, what you find is that a lot of people were surprised at the turnout, and they did everything they could to suppress the crowd and to attack the persons who are heading to these rallies. And so and to make it worse, just as you've pointed out in Borno yesterday, you had the police issuing a release that is in stark contradiction to the video evidence that we've all seen this morning. So you find very quickly that the police, who should be the law enforcement agency, are in themselves complicit in the violence, because if you are going to be given a different narrative, an untruthful narrative, to give cover to what has happened, it means that nobody is going to be held responsible. If the person who should hold people responsible, the agency that should hold them responsible, is the one coming out to lie that the event did not even happen in the first place. And when you see somebody like Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who would have full DSS protection, the gamut of security forces, even as a function of his former office, being attacked like that in Benue and in Borno, I wonder what will happen when the like of us go visiting, especially given the kind of rhetoric that had issued forth even from him in public about how they should vote only for the northerners. So you're seeing a situation where they are preparing ground all over the place to focus the people on anything but the issues. But we will continue to attempt to focus the people's attention on the issues, because the issues are urgent enough as they are. Nigerians are bleeding from practically every pore in their bodies. So if we are now forced to be debating whether somebody is attending a town hall meeting, whether they will attend future debates, or whether they will continue to have their closely choreographed road shows where nobody can ask critical questions and other people but the candidate explains the thoughts of the candidate, whether we'll continue to have that and continue to pretend that we are a democracy, we'll see how it goes. But as of today, the duty to provide security rests squarely on the state. The Nigerian police is but one arm of its capacities, and you can see clearly how corrupt and incapacitated that arm has become. What has happened to the rest, we know not, but we'll stick with the issues.
The president admonished them to be completely neutral.
Okay.
You think they'll be able to do so?
The president himself is anything but neutral. He has never been anything, he has never ever been neutral in his dealings with Nigerians. So it's actually quite disingenuous for the president to be admonishing other people to be neutral when he himself is so blatantly nepotistic in everything that he has ever done in this country. So,
okay, let's take you on the couple of things happening in the Labour Party, because since the Labour Party emerged with Peter Obi, a lot of people have flocked into the party, and it started to have its own internal friction. So in Enugu State, for instance, the court, annulled the candidates. Your state, there was somebody decamping from the Labour Party. I mean, how are you guys managing this new fame in the Labour Party and internals happening? And secondly, Dele Farotimi was speaking about 6 days ago, and he said you're still talking to Kwanka. So a lot of people started reading a lot of meaning to that. Why? Because they said they saw a certain bromance, and body language experts said there's a certain synergy between Peter Obi and Kwanka. So during the town hall meeting, that there was this, camaraderie between both of them. So are they still talking? And is there a possibility of a deal in the offing, an alliance between Kwanka and the Labour Party?
I'll start with the Labour Party wranglings. I think if we look honestly at what is today the Labour Party, and you then look back, say, like a year or 6 months, you would see quickly why the wranglings that you are referring to would be happening. Some of them are genuine ideological arguments are happening within the party, and that is bound to happen when you have so many new people coming together because of a common purpose. So you have those wranglings. And then you have wranglings coming from the powers that be, the entrenched political parties, who are also sponsoring disaffection within the party in order to weaken its capacities particularly in the gubernatorial elections and in the National Assembly elections, because it wasn't like the party was here the way it is today 6 months ago. So all kind of people have obviously been attracted into the party or attracted by the party. Persons who had not considered the party's candidates as being viable now realize the threat that those candidates have become. And when you now have a judiciary as hopelessly compromised as the one ours is, and I say that full chest, hopelessly compromised, you then find multiplicities of those who are willing to lend themselves to all manner of disgraceful injunctions and judgments, most of which, as I was part of a meeting yesterday where Labour Party lawyers across the channel, over 50 of them, were looking at different litigations. And the educated position of a lot of lawyers are in that meeting were that a lot of the rulings which have been designed to disenfranchise and take them off the ballot are completely untenable in law. And some of them were even hidden. We didn't know of the existence of some of those rulings and judgments until the very last minute. But there are appeal processes going on, and I'm happy that certain judges have taken it upon themselves to expedite their cases. One of such is in the Lagos State, the Federal High Court in Lagos State, affecting the candidates for the National Assembly election in Lagos. So you see, we have all these, but as I have said, some of them are ideological, but a lot more are actually just sponsored and effect of the new capacity of the party and the kind of enemies that it has attracted.
The second question I asked about...
Yes, the second question is about Alhaji Kwakwanso. Politics is essentially a game of negotiations. If you can find common purpose and common interests. Alhaji Kwakwanso has, whether one likes to admit it or not, he's proven himself to be different from a lot of the other persons in the race. He's probably the closest when it comes to clarity of vision to Governor Peter Obi. And there was, once upon a time, an attempt to find some common ground with him. So I believe that the way things stand, until that door is completely shut, we must continue to find common purpose and common ground. So Governor Kwakwanso is somebody that I'm sure we would have no problem working with if we can find.
So you guys are talking?
I believe so.
Big time.
Well, only Dr. Okupe. You know me, I'm not a politician. I'm just a part-time troublemaker. I come on there and defend Labour Party as best as I can. But I'm sure that if Dr. Okupe says that they are talking, then they must be talking. He's the DG of the campaign. I've not had the benefit of his company in the last month. He's been busy in Abuja and with all the campaigns. So I haven't talked to him one-on-one to know the extent of discussions. But he's not a frivolous man. If he says we're talking, then we certainly are.
Okay, you mentioned litigations.
Yeah.
But with regard to the Labour Party. But INEC itself has had cause to raise concern about litigations. The INEC chairman says that there are about 600 cases in court in which INEC was joined as a party, arising from party primaries or the nomination of candidates. And that in one day, they got about 70 different cases regarding one political party. And he expressed the concern on the floor of the House of Reps, where he had gone to present the budget for INEC for 2023, that look, with all these litigations, it will be very difficult. And he was appealing to the judiciary to please help them. In what sense? I don't understand. But can anybody legitimately say people should not go to court? Many of those cases, as you pointed out, are frivolous. There is a lot of forum shopping. There is a lot of hanky-panky on the part of lawyers, particularly. How do you think we can address this problem? Election petition tribunals have been set up, 300 judges. There probably will be more. Some candidates may never even show up on the ballot because of all these cases.
You see, what we do in Nigeria is that we play the game of pretense. We want to tell people that we are a democracy, so we have a ritual even though it's hollow in the extreme. Those who are seeking office do not see the need to present themselves before the people. They weave and dodge until election time. Those who are to be voted for are rarely to be found talking to the people whose vote they are also seeking. What you have today is something that is merely a shadow, and it is lacking in any substance. What you call courts and the temples of justice are essentially brothels. So when you now have a situation where, no, they are brothels, wow. Because if you're dealing, think about it.
That's an affront.
It's not an affront, it's just simply the truth. If you even the question that Dr. Obi-Datti has asked, bro, it paints a putrid picture. The electoral body is receiving 70 writs in one day in relation to a political process that has delivered nada to the people, but instead pauperized them and turned them into victims. What are we to say to a Judex who has chosen not to do justice in his court? The way things stand today, they have taken the matters before the court. Nobody can stop people from filing cases. Lawyers would always have one cause or the other that they will persuade the client, who is also, like you have said, forum shopping, looking for one thing or the other. Some people's specialty is to simply find a case that they can use after election to negotiate something from a candidate to settle the case. So it's just a reflection of where we are. We can be talking about the judiciary as though it's the only point of putrefaction in our system, but it's everywhere. This issue with the judiciary, we just spoke about the police as well. How are they any different? So it's the same thing that you see in one sector, you find in the other one. I don't know how long we might continue like this before it collapses, because if people now begin to lose confidence in the capacity of the judiciary or in the electoral process itself, then they will begin to look for solutions outside of those systems. So it's up to us as a people to decide if we want to continue like this. I don't really know how one might persuade the judiciary to do what it should do, or to tell lawyers who have sworn to uphold a constitution, however fraudulent one might believe it to be, but do the exact opposite of what they say they will do. So it's a societal-wide problem. It's not just this, it's everywhere. I don't know what else to say about our judiciary, but what you are hearing, 600 plus cases, 72 in one day. You and I, we can speak Dogon Turenji from now till kingdom come, until the judiciary purges itself and lawyers equally redirect their mind to purpose. This will continue.
Right.
Well, thank you very much, Dele Farotimi. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Thank you.